Okay, I think we're going to get started. It's 12:02. Okay, so my name is Amanda Colin, and today's webinar is focused on coordinated enrollment and the updated self-assessment survey. Our goal today is to review the changes to the enhanced coordinated enrollment self-assessment and provide support to community networks in completing this more comprehensive self-assessment. We'll go over the early childhood vision, coordinated enrollment planning, the self-assessment overview, the changes, end with a timeline and next steps. There are some slides in here that we've included that we think are important, and I know that you guys have seen them multiple times, but there may be some new coordinators on the line, or some of you may plan on redelivering this to your network. The first one is the early childhood vision, and that is sharing high standards for what children should learn and what excellent teaching looks like. Teachers are excellent at interacting with children and guiding learning. Expectations for health, safety, and learning are consistent with adequate funding levels for programs that will serve children well. And today's focus on families can easily enroll children and choose the best option for their children. So in coordinated enrollment, a lot of progress has been made since Act 3. Community networks have been coordinating these processes for families so they can learn about what their networks are offering and enroll their children in the program. These early childhood programs are held to the same standards, and information on the program's quality is available to the public, and more children are able to access high quality for early childhood care and education. We know that there is more work to be done when it comes to maximize capacity, but we are finding creative solutions. You guys have been coordinating on multiple components, counting all at-risk publicly funded children by funding source, submitting coordinated funding requests, and submitting a coordinated enrollment plan each year. That coordinated enrollment planning process has 4 key components, and that was defined with Act 717. Coordinated information so families know of all available seats in their community network. Coordinate the eligibility process so families know what programs that they can qualify for. Coordinate an application so families can apply for using one application and apply for all the programs. And matching based on preference, so families can enroll their child in their highest ranked preference available. So I wanted to just take a moment before we jumped right into the assessment and say that in March and April, I had the opportunity to start making calls and visits to different community networks and learn about coordinated enrollment within these different networks, and I got to speak with a lot of you. I haven't got to meet every one of you yet, but in these conversations, you guys gave me feedback on the different successes and the improvements you've made, and even your growing pains. I asked about how the department can support you more, and with that feedback, we took that and we have built some tools and strengthened some tools. And this self-assessment, being more comprehensive, is one of those tools. It's intended to guide community networks to reflect on their effectiveness when planning for the coordinated enrollment. Previously, the self-assessment, when I was reviewing the results, coordination at different levels has been accomplished. So that self-assessment before was identifying and developing and coordinating the resources that you guys had at the community level and informing families of the program. This updated and comprehensive self-assessment is really going to target collaborating and planning so that you're using and identifying the effective use of the resources you've already developed and coordinated. It's going to be identifying and asking about the unifying and implementing of practices that are reducing burdens for families and children. It's also looking into evaluating and improving processes within your network to increase access for families. And it's taking a closer look at the data sources you're using and the variety of data sources and how you're analyzing them to best understand the need within your network. The purpose of some of these updates and changes and the self-assessment intention is so that you'll be able to reflect on the successes and challenges that you faced last year and identify some of those strengths and then opportunities for growth for the upcoming year. And then identifying that those opportunities for growth can help you plan some goals and then step out some action steps to maybe inform and engage and recruit families for the upcoming year. Completing this self-assessment is almost like your first step in the year's coordinated enrollment process. It should help inform with the planning component of coordinated enrollment. So what is it going to look like? Completing the self-assessment. So each lead agency will partner with the community network partners and any other relevant stakeholders. Having and actively engaging as many publicly funded partners is going to be beneficial so that you can have a diverse representation to collect feedback and input. Child care facilitators and directors, your Head Start, NS ECD directors, school-based pre-K providers. Also, you're going to want to print the self-assessment for the participants so they can mark their responses, make notes. And then finally, the lead agency is going to want to submit their final responses in Google Form. And I'll give you more information about the submitting in the Google Form link at the end of the webinar today. One of the things that you'll notice is different about this self-assessment this year is there is a key term section. And what we noticed in the development was that there were some terms that continually popped up that needed to be defined, and we needed to be able to use these terms so frequently that we need to have a strong definition for them. And these three terms are for use of the format, but there were other terms like enrollment data and access gap or gap in access. So we wanted to be able to have an area that you can refer back to for key terms. And a lot of this feedback came about because during the drafting of this particular updated version of the self-assessment, we reached out to many of the lead agencies and asked for them to review and look over a drafted version. And through that feedback loop, we took that feedback and we revised and we listened to more of what you were saying and tried to make sure that we were addressing the concerns. So we took your information, your feedback, and made sure that this was a tool that was going to be meaningful for you. So I wanted to briefly just address these three. Performance statement, you're going to notice that you'll have a performance statement, and it's basically your expectation statement for the coordinated enrollment process. What would be needed to complete a successful enrollment process. Then you'll notice that you have it for indicators. These indicators will be the action steps that will be laid out, that laid out the expectation for successful completion of, almost broken down in pieces. And then you have the overall rating, which will be the third part to each section. The overall rating will provide a level of performance, and that level of performance will kind of give you an indication on how your network is performing per that section. And when we look into it a little deeper, you'll see that we're focused on the 4 major sections of the Coordinated Enrollment Plan, which is the maximized capacity, coordinated information campaign, coordinated eligibility determination, and coordinated application, matching, and registration. So this is the first, or just an example item, and how you would see it on the self-assessment. When you read, I'm going to use my mouse, when you read your performance statement, it'll be a statement about what should be true for a highly effective coordinated enrollment process. Planning, the first indicator, will kind of break down what you would do within a planning process. And that would probably include identifying resources, collaborating with partners, and developing some type of process, a plan, maybe a set of procedures. There are some data questions in here. So it may be identifying a data source or a data management system in this particular example. The second indicator is implementing. This would be the execution of whatever system, process, or set of procedures was developed. Unifying is the third indicator. This indicator really focuses on the inclusiveness of all partners or all program partners. And then finally, you have evaluating. This is the part or the indicator that is where the network is measuring and evaluating whatever was executed or implemented to make adjustments so that they can make improvements for the next year. Is it possible to select indicators out of order? Yes, because you could be making planning decisions but may struggle in the implementation process. So you'll see here that this, or we'll make up a pseudo community network, and we'll call it the colon community network. And in colon community network, unifying is maybe a struggle. So not all program partners participated. So we had a tally of indicators of 3 here. So you put 3. And this is one of the reasons why I think printing the self-assessment could be helpful. All right, I want to dive into one that was a little more dense so we can kind of dig into it. This is section 4, item 3. It might be helpful if you had the self-assessment in front of you. If you don't, then you could refer back to the email that Kay sent out on the 29th, that would be Monday, that released the self-assessment, and you could just pull it up electronically. So this, in section 4, that would be coordinated application, matching, and registration. Item 3, the performance statement, you can read it. It says, implemented a data system to manage and monitor applications, placement, and waitlist decisions for families and program partners. That's a pretty dense question. But if you really focus at the top, you'll see that the focus is a data system to manage and monitor. So you're identifying a data system that manages and monitors multiple processes, but it's a data system. Well, in the colon community network, we were really strong in the planning component and identifying the information that we needed, like the real-time vacancy information, and it helping making sure that we asked the right questions with the family preference. But when it came to implementing and maybe making sure that families had information, and maybe even in unifying all program partners were not necessarily transparent with program types yet. So I could only check planning. This is a good area for me to make note that in this community network, I'm going to want to possibly make some goals on figuring out a system or a process to figure out how to make this transparent, this wait list. Or maybe I'm working on updating the placement component. But my tally for this particular section, item 3, will be 1. Okay, I'm gonna zoom out to take a bigger picture of a couple. So I want a couple of different items so that you can see a trend. And then I'm gonna tell you where we can put some of our notes on for this wait list or my concerns for placement for the colon community network. In the big picture, I see the colon community network is continuing to do really well with planning. If I look vertically here, this network is really strong with planning, but implementing, I may want to figure out where my gaps are with the implementation component. Or I may even look a little more carefully and see that it's the data system that is causing the concern. I can look very specifically and look across and see that I have strong indicators when it comes to training. So when you look at this self-assessment, you're able to look horizontally for specific questions, or you can look vertically and determine whether or not these indicators can provide you like an overview, a big picture view of, is it planning that's causing some gaps? Is it the implementation, the execution component? Do we still need to get, try to help program partners with the investment into the network and develop a sense of cohesiveness? Are evaluating, we're not even there yet, let's go back to unifying or implementing. I want to jump into the opportunities for planning. That's that third section of the enrollment, the self-assessment. Opportunities for planning is the piece where you can type in and write your notes down for as you were, I'm going to go right back here. Anything that you saw, any gaps any pieces you were missing, this is where you get to write down your notes. This is why having a printed version of your assessment is going to be helpful. You can record your thoughts and ideas that develop during these reflective conversations. So when you're having these conversations and you see that these indicators are talking points for areas that you want to grow on, you can put these notes there. These notes can be helpful to refer back to during the funding request and even when the upcoming coordinated enrollment plan pops up. I'm going to give you an example here. This is what it would look like. And so the colon community network would be considering a couple of different goals for the next year. One is create a transparent wait list that we can try to figure out a way to incorporate all program partners to have access to it, and then see how we can incorporate families and share in this wait list so they can figure out when or where they're placed on that wait list. Also, refining some sort of plan on who is notifying families on the placement of their placement, so they know when to expect the communication. So who's going to do the communication, how, and when. And then the colon community network also thought about training materials and a possible onboarding materials for new employees. So this opportunities for planning, this item is optional, but could be beneficial during the self-assessment process. You might even have assigned someone as the note taker to just write a note for the planning part. Okay. All right, so when you move into the overall rating, This is where you'll go back on and look over your paper copy, and you'll review each item, the tallies that you collected for each item, and then you'll write down your tallies here, and then collect your total. So you'll collect a sum in total for your indicators for 1 through 4, and there's only 4 questions. Then you're going to check the level of accuracy or accurately reflects the number of indicators. So now you'll move to your overall rating, and you'll see there's a description. You'll look for your total indicators and find your range. So for the colon network, we had a total of 10 for section 4. Now we're going to come to section 4 and look for our range that fits in. And then the description is evidence of coordination, consistent implementation, and efficient data management to ensure consistent and efficient processes for families. So meeting standards. I may want to read the description below and the description above just to see where I fit in between. But the overall rating is based on the total number of indicators. So you're going to find your range, read the description, and that's how you'll know what your overall rating is. And check that off. And you're just checking that off with your pencil because this is just on paper form. This is what it will look like on your page. In this particular example, there were an 8 total, and it was in progressing. Okay, and so the last final component of the whole entire self-assessment is that we're asking all community networks to sign an assurance statement and list all of the program partners that were included in the self-assessment process. And you have 2 ways that you can do this. You can, on the printed form, list each partner and the name of their site or in program, and then upload this information into the FTP, your FTP folder. But when you go into the Google form, you can also just submit it electronically and type them in electronically. To talk a little bit more about the Google submission of electronic responses, it'll look like what you probably have done before when it comes to Google surveys. It'll have your performance statement right here, but you won't see the big full description of the indicator. It'll just have the indicator alone. So you'll click all the indicators that you and your network described and collaborated on together, that you chose together, and you'll click the ones that apply and are true for your network for last year, and that's what you'll submit on the Google form. Okay, so the timeline is, so submitting, the link is here, and I'm gonna make it live after the webinar today. It's due by September the 3rd. And here are just some other relevant upcoming action items. I know this sounds crazy, but October count will be due by the end of October. The coordinated funding request is coming up, and that's going to be aligned to the timeline with Super App, and we'll give you some more information about that. It'll be released in September. And this is crazy to think about, but coordinated enrollment plan for next year will be due in January 2020. So I'm going to stop right here and ask if you guys have any questions. You can type in the chat box, or if you want to raise your hand, if you have any questions. It's very quiet. I'll stay on the line a few more minutes for questions.
It's 27 participants. That doesn't seem like a lot for the whole network. Participants, people listening, because it's not just for Ready Start.
Pam, Crook, and Mary Howard, I think that you guys have your hands raised, but I think it may have been for the sound check earlier.
Yes. You can check it and say that. I just checked yes.
Okay, so if you have any questions, please feel free to email me or call me. So your next steps are gather your program partners and stakeholders and complete the self-assessment together. You'll discuss your performance statements and indicators, collaborate on the choices for the indicators and that apply to that network. And then you'll submit the self-assessment responses electronically. And your link is here. And this is asked for by September the 3rd. Again, I'm Amanda Colin. If you have any questions, call that number, 219-0403, or email me. I will be attending Kay's office hours on Tuesdays, 3 to 3:30 for the next couple of weeks. If you have any questions about the self-assessment during that time. If there are no other questions, I think that'll be it. We'll end the call if there's nothing else. Thank you so much, and I hope you have a great day. Bye-bye.